Hi, welcome back to the debate. I'm Matt Patel. Today we're discussing 250 years of the United States of America. The anniversary is very fast approaching, 4th of July, which is on Saturday, and there'll be lots of celebrations taking place in America. But with me to discuss all of that, I've got Matt Meyer, a historian and an author, and also Jihad Abdulmumit, a community activist and author, and somebody who took part in the Black Panther political movement. In fact, he was a prisoner. Matt Meyer, you were speaking before the break, giving us the history, and now you were going to speak about the future in terms of where we are with this imperfect or perfect union, depending on how you see it. Please carry on.
It's always tricky because historians always want to bring us a little bit to the past history, and your question was about the future. Look at all social change movements all over the world go through steps forward and steps back. And yeah, this has not been the last best few years in terms of what people would see internationally in the U.S. as a period of anti-militarism, a period of social human rights growth in terms of other areas of general progress. But, you know, just like we don't take Trump to be the center of all contemporary historical barometers, we don't take him the center of all future barometers either. There are many, many movements growing all across the U.S., all across the 50 states and related colonies or neo-colonies, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Guam, Alaska, you know, state or not. There's a growing movement and growing unity around the idea that we have to be better. We have to answer the question, is America possible, with a resounding yes. And we do look elsewhere. The coalition, the group that El Hajj Mauri and Jihad and I are all a part of, celebrating this July 4th, 250 plus years of resistance, is called the Spirit of Mandela Coalition. Our website, spiritofmandela.org, all one word, spiritofmandela.org. And, you know, we reference Mandela not because we don't have our own Mandelas like Minister Malcolm X, like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, like Fannie Lou Hamer, or Ella Baker, or, you know, many, many other heroes and sheroes. But we reference Mandela because there's a certain understanding that internationally, in terms of constitutions, in terms of human rights, there have been other experiments and other examples. And many of us think the U.S. needs to look at and partner with, not as an imperial center or superpower, but as an ally, some of the countries of the world, especially of the global South, that have been more progressive in terms of inclusion of all its citizens, in terms of human rights and justice for all.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate you giving us that context and also those views. We're joined, just to let you know, by Noman Hanif. He's a political analyst. He's been on my show a number of times. Noman, I've got Matt Meyer and Jihad from the US. Matt's a historian. Jihad is a community activist and author and has been a Black Panther political prisoner. Jihad, just on you before I go to Noman. Do you believe moving forward, let's look at the next 250 years, it's quite a long way to look forward to. Perhaps let's look at the next 20 years or next 50 years, however you wish. Do you believe America in the form that it's been in will generally still be where it is at this moment in time? It's not the America that was there 250 years ago, so it'd be trite of me to predict that it's going to be the same in 250 years. But let's say 20 to 50 years, if that's like the short term, which I think it is in a historical context, very short term, do you think this union will be kept together because of the forces that are inevitably pushing and breaking it at the seams?
Right. Wow. Why you do that to me, brother? I would first of all say with all absoluteness that Allah knows best.
Sure.
So I will give my humble opinion about it. A lot of it depends on the movements on the ground, the human rights movements and all our different formations and groupings. and which has always been the case. Because somebody can say, well, y'all don't love it, leave it. No, if it wasn't for the fact of activist protests, civil rights movement, the liberation movements, and people that cared about each other in this country that protested and lost their life, there would not be no humanity, not only in the United States, but around the world for that matter. So, but depending on the strength of our movements on the ground, to infuse a sense of humanity, to be able to feed, clothe, and shelter ourselves, to be able to protect ourselves against capitalist aggression, which is infused by racism, degradation, and exploitation. If we're not able to, as a movement, as one of our comrades, Jalil Muttaqin, said, we are our own liberators. If we're not able to build that robustness to change society, if you will, excuse me, to change, I think that the answer will not be good voting for the United States.
Yes.
But not only that, with the advancement of technology, Matt mentioned in the beginning, we had a tribunal charged the United States with genocide of Black, brown, and indigenous people. Well, one of those elements of that charge was environmental racism. Even if, let alone what's done to humanity with state-sponsored violence and mass incarcerations, medical and healthcare inequities, let alone the destruction of the planet because of capitalist greed. Now, that may be a much more bigger issue than going any war in Iran, anything. If we continue as we are, with the unscrupulous, unchecked growth of greed and development and the ignoring of the rights and life of humanity and the protection of this planet. So now the clock is ticking. And if it continues to go that way, it's not only a question of the fate of the United States of America, but by the fate of the whole world. And one more point to that. So the movements have a lot to do with, inshallah, the very existence of this country.
Yes.
The movements around the world have a lot to do with the very existence of humanity itself. The leadership in countries, I'm spazzing out, I just drank my cup of coffee, but I just want to say, if you have somebody in a Muslim country that's going to give Donald Trump a $400 million plane while people in the Sahel in the global south are starving, that's not a good commentary for leadership around the world, let alone the Donald Trumps. So we have a lot of work to do, but my answer rests, I'll leave it here, in the development of our human rights movements on the ground to be able to change internally the structures and the trajectory of this greedy, demonic capitalist system.
Okay, quite strong words there as well at the end.
Always speak strong, brother. Always speak strong. I'm a Black Panther. I don't speak soft.
Absolutely, absolutely. No,
Yeah,
thank you for that.
There you go. You're welcome.
Dr. Noman Hanif, you're more an analyst on the global scale. Obviously, you can comment about what takes place in America if you so wish. But fundamentally, I've had this debate with you a few times. Is it better for the world to be dominated by America than be dominated by China, for example, or be dominated by Russia? At least with America, the argument goes, there is some modicum of freedom, some modicum of being able to challenge, whereas if you were dominated by the Chinese, for example, or the Russians, would you have human rights and liberty and the system that we've got in the world? I mean, that's not my personal view. It's just a view that I'm putting to you. Tell us what you think.
Walaikum everyone. Sorry, I joined the debate late, and I'm kind of disoriented as to where I am in the debate. But it's a very nuanced question. I think that. Firstly, I don't think there should be anyone dominating the world, number one. And I think, secondly, with respect to the United States, I don't think it has. Every country's got its positives and negatives. But with the United States, in terms of the global aspect, no. It doesn't have the leadership, not the capability, but it is not fit for global leadership, put it this way. I mean, it's a nation which is built on genocide. It is a nation which has perpetuated genocide. It is the only established genocide in the world. It looks at the whole world like its farm. That's what it said. Its founder said that we look at the world as a farm. This is the American farm, where we will plant and expand it and so forth. But I mean, Brother Jihad mentioned about the capitalist system. Of course, the capitalist system is the demonic aspect of the world and its crisis. And America is at the helm of that, and that is the problem. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about China and others, what first of all, I don't think China has any designs to lead the world in that sense. China is only happy to lead South Asia at best. You know, the Asian peninsula area. It's happy with this little area. It always has civilization of it. But I think there are positives that America has, no doubt of it. America is a very creative nation. It's given a lot of creativity to the world. America's kind of founding principles, no one can really argue with many of those particular founding issues and ideas, but it's the implementation, and it's the kind of the molding of that with the capitalist thrust, which has kind of made it. I mean, the world has been effectively under a state of emergency.
Yeah.
With America in the world, and I don't think that's going to return, and I think no one's going to actually have. You're not going to find peace. If you're looking for peace in globe, you're not going to find it. Okay,
thank you, Matt. You were putting your finger up there. Your comment.
A very quick comment. We agree with a lot of what Dr. Said, and you said this 20-year thing to Brother Jihad. You know, I'm an old peace activist. I'm the Secretary General Emeritus of International Peace Research Association. One of our founders, Johann Galtung, talked about the end of the Soviet Union and predicted it some years before that happened. And he talks about the end of the U.S. empire. He talked about that years ago, and I think that is what we are experiencing now. But like our good doctor just said, some of us wish for a world without any imperial center. With an end of imperialism and empire building in general. That may be a little pie in the sky. But my own sense is that the next 20 years for the U.S. are not going to be great ones. We are looking at the end of the U.S. empire now, and a lot of thrashing around and a lot of violence and pain as we see this empire come to a close. But my ending on hope, you know, I mentioned Nelson Mandela and South Africa. I'm going to end on hope right there in the UK with all of its imperfections and problems. You know, we saw the British Empire where the sun would never set. We saw the sun set, and we saw an end of empire there. And not to idealize any culture or any society, but if the UK moves from a major imperialist force to less of an imperialist force, and could still contribute to the world. Oh, I don't know, groups like the Beatles or Monty Python. We're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. So I hope for U.S., maybe not 20 years from now, but in the future, that will be less of an empire and more of a nation amongst nations with some humor, with some culture. I mean, we know that the Beatles got a lot of their stuff from African-American culture here in the U.S. Maybe we could be a nation amongst nations where indeed we're working together for peace and justice, not for imperialism, for any empire center anywhere in the world.
Okay, well, thank you. Jihad, if Matt is correct and America is going to go through, in the next 20 years, certainly, the loss, well, it will be a declining power. It won't be an imperial power anymore. It will obviously look in on itself. Do you think it's equipped to deal with the problems that America has right now internally? Let's forget the global problems, but can it deal with the problems itself? I mean, if you look at speech in America, you do have free speech. There is, you know, in some respects, unbridled free speech. You can speak for Hitler, I suppose. You can have neo-Nazis, you know, standing for government. I mean, some would say Donald Trump is one. But in terms of the problems that the US faces, and I'm not just speaking about the problems within the black community, homelessness, jobs, and etc., the rest of it. I'm talking about the problems structurally within America. Without having an empire, can America succeed?
I believe yes, inshallah. I believe so. I think that we have, as Dr. Hanif said, we have the creativity and the innovation, the resources, and I have to say the wealth, albeit off the backs of 400 years of exploitation of people of color and the gutting out of the Sahel and the global south since World War II, albeit all that is how it got there. Like as Al-Hajj Malik al-Sabah said, how did America get rich? Got rich on the back of slaves. 20 years of free labor, a running start, then with, the American military budget dwarfs the 20 countries, the next 20 countries all put together, including Russia and China. The money is there, so if the political direction, if we're able to change that trajectory, I think Dr. Hanif, if I'm not misquoting you, he said America doesn't have the moral authority or the leadership to lead, but it has the capacity with the resources, the creativity and innovation. And we're able to, if the people are able to harness that, the leadership is able to, if we're able to fuse that relationship and turn all those opportunities that we have in this country to really tend to the needs of the people, then I say yes, it's a resounding yes. We have no choice. So that's the challenge of all movements and human rights activists on the ground here in the United States, and that's the drum that we're beating every day.
Okay. So then my question to you, Dr. Hanif, having listened to what Jihad just said, if that were to happen, what will be the impact on the globe of America being one of many major powers, but not being the world power or the policeman of the world? What will be the impact on other countries? Because we've discussed a little bit of that in our previous meetings.
Yeah. Can I you see, decline is relative to many areas, whether economic, military, whatever it is.
Yes.
But there's one thing that we forget, that no one, despite China, Russia, we can talk about India, all of these, but they're not nations which inspire people. They're not nations which inspire the globe. Yeah, they're nationalist states which only care about their nationalism. When Russia was Soviet Union, is communist, it inspired people around the world. People were drawn to communism. So when it became Russia, no one's drawn to Russia. Yeah, because it's a nationalist conception. Yet people are drawn to the United States and its ideas. Yes, that's what is global leadership. So I don't think that America will decline in that sense, because the alternative is not there to take that leadership away from the United States. It doesn't exist. The ideas which it proposes now, if people had a choice, should we be have an American hegemon, or should we have a Chinese, Indian, or Russian? There's no choice. People would gravitate towards the United States with all its evils. Yes, purely because they feel that whatever the kind of conception of freedom and justice or whatever it has, and its principles, it is far removed from the other countries. Although they might admire the other countries in terms of their economy, in terms of their military development, etc., but not when it comes down to global ideological leadership. The Americans are far ahead in that, and I cannot see America declining in that respect. Because remember, they are also supported in the same civilizational values by the Europeans.
Okay.
So it's not just the Americans here which have this global.
It's a good point. Then my question to you, Matt, then, is it manifest destiny? That great term that was coined by the US president, our destiny. This is where we're meant to be. I mean, almost, it almost goes back to that despite America not wanting to be in the game, it needs to be in the game because, as Dr. Noman said, it's the only one that can inspire. And I think he's got a really good point there. When you read the Constitution, you do get inspired. I mean, those are ideals which all humans aspire to be free, to be equal, to have liberty. Obviously, the practice of it has been somewhat, well, in many ways, lacking, hugely lacking. Tell us, Matt.
But that's the key, and Doctor said it himself, and he used my favorite word, which is nuance. Look, it's between principle and practice that reality comes in. So if you have the great words but no practice, well, then really what good are they? They're not so good for humans. But listen, I disagree with none of this. I mean, like the Soviet Union, China in its early days had that same kind of inspiration. And the more China appears to be capitalist to the world, the less it has that. So the points are well taken. But oh my God, you've asked a historian to predict the future. Now you're asking me to comment on spiritual matters, manifest destiny. So even though we'll say, inshallah, we hope for all the best, I want to say it's not manifest destiny. It's not manifest destiny, but it is a historical reality that U.S. and my own city, New York City,
Yes.
has become an international center, a center of internationalism in such a way that it inspires in ways that other places that are more, conventional, that less have this energy, are there. If we still rely so intensively on capitalism, if we rely so intensively on patriarchy, if we rely so intensely on making America great, which is, say, going back 100 years or going back 200 years, then we'll continue to fail. We'll continue to be a disgrace. But we have the possibility, as all of the speakers and you yourself have said, of doing something better than that. And we have to do it in conjunction with the whole world.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Matt. Final word from you, Jihad, before I finish off with Dr. Noman. I mentioned Manifest Destiny. Matt says, no, that's not us. What do you say? And also, coming from New York, Matt obviously has an example there. Perhaps Mamdani and his politics is Manifest Destiny coming to the fore. Tell us your view.
It's not Manifest Destiny. It's people's power.
People's power, yes.
It's grassroots young people saying, we're going to use the vehicles of electoral politics to do something differently. That's not Manifest Destiny. People's power.
Thank you.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, Jihad. I'm going to have to push you for time is so short, but please.
Okay, really quickly. So yes, and so just how Matt he just changed the wording there, and a lot of the questions that come to us, we have to reground the narrative and start all over, so we don't always have to be building off of a narrative that came before us that we didn't create. So I just want to segue into agreeing with what Matt said. We have to form our own terminologies from the beginning to the end, and not trying to build, justify, explain, and re-explain what has the narrative that's been given to us, and then we'll be going in a circle, chasing our tail. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Jihad. Appreciate that. Dr. Hanif, final word to you. I think you got the gist of the conversation now. My apologies for not putting more context when you came in. But in terms of what you say, I mean, whenever anybody speaks about the US, I mean, I grew up in the UK, but with a very US-centric culture. I would certainly miss the America that I know, the good parts of America. I studied American history when I was in college up to, I think it was 1850 to 1950. So I studied the civil rights movement up to 1950. We all know what's happened after that. Has America got a future that it can still be culturally dominant and still pass on the good parts to the rest of the world as you hope?
Well, it definitely has the power to do that, and Matt says the capability to do that. But can I just say one thing in the concluding thing?
Very quickly.
It's that the world hasn't finished yet. The world hasn't finished yet. Yeah, there is still room for another model to emerge, which will inspire people away from America.
Okay.
So we haven't drawn a line in the sand with America. There is and the world is thirsty and hungry for a new model of something which is beyond capitalism, which will give humanity back and so forth. So there is space. There is space. We haven't seen anything at the end yet.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all of you. We've finished exactly on time. I'm afraid, folks, that's all we've got time for. But what are, thanks to our guests, Matt Meyer, Jihad Abdulmumit, and also Dr. Noman Hanif. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. But what a debate. I mean, the United States, is the world a better place for it? I think in some respects it is. Is it good that the US power is waning and I suppose other ideals and other powers come to the fore? Well, it's inevitable whether we like it or not. Thank you for joining us. But that's all for this evening. Take care.